3,000.
What is doing? I hate doing it, but I'd like everyone to like, subscribe, share the content. Sharing is really important. If you like the content that I'm bringing you with the 3000 podcast, you want to help us grow, make sure you do all that stuff. Follow us on Instagram, like, subscribe, share, do all that good shit. Now to the episode.
3,000.
What is doing? My name's Maloney. This is the 3000 podcast. I'm joined today by a friend, an artist, Anthony Breslin. Thanks for coming, mate.
Thanks for having me, mate.
I know it's quite an effort for you to get here, and I appreciate it. And it almost didn't happen, but I'm really glad that it did. And we've got our other mate over there as well, so it's a good day. It's great to see you.
Oh, look, it's great to be here, considering what I was like yesterday. You know, in hospital, couldn't walk, had 2 blood transfusions, and that's what got me here today.
So the transfusions, as much as that's like obviously hectic on your body to go through that, but it makes you in the long, initially feel better instantly almost?
Pretty much, because my hemoglobin had dropped down to near 0. You know, so that's your hemoglobin affects your body's ability to carry oxygen. So wasn't carrying hardly any oxygen, no energy at all. I was rat shit. So I was rushed into hospital and whacked on 2 blood bags. But I've got connections in the hospital, which really helps. I've got a great nurse there that looks after me. So they got me in straight away, looked after me in a private ward and everything.
Wow. You're a bit of a frequent flyer with the hospital.
Very frequent flyer. Spent a lot of time in hospital, mate, I tell you what.
And obviously they've helped you a lot, but I guess it's a bit of sweet relationship. Every time you're there, you're not feeling great, but they help you a lot.
Oh, yeah, and it's quite traumatising being in the cancer ward there. I've donated a lot of artwork to the cancer clinic there too, the cancer ward.
Amazing.
I'm about to donate 3 more pieces. I'm going to order for them big prints.
Yep. It's your way of saying thank you.
Yeah, and also because it helps the patients. I've got letters from the patients saying, you know, they go and find my address and write me a letter about how the artwork has uplifted them. Because when you're in the cancer ward, you're walking around the corridors on your own day after day after day thinking, I'm not going to be here for much longer. So it's a very confronting experience.
For sure.
And if I could give artwork to people that uplifts their spirit, super helpful for me.
Yep.
It uplifts my spirit. Yep.
Yeah. Everyone wins.
Everyone wins, yeah.
Well, let's talk a bit about your journey and becoming an artist, and obviously there's a lot to talk about before you got to be unwell, unfortunately. But let's talk about sort of where you grew up and how you got involved in art.
Well, I grew up in Melbourne, in Caulfield. You know, abusive childhood, you know, but that was probably an advantage to me because I felt worthless, and that experience spurred me on to be or become something. So I used it as a positive in my life, even though it was a very difficult upbringing. But I got into art school. It's an amazing, I don't know, I want to bore you with all my stories.
No, but this is what it's about. This is the story. That's what, yeah.
Well, I won a big TV show called Man Oh Man. I don't know if you ever remember it.
I do, where they used to push people in the pool.
Yeah, so I won that show. I won a $10,000 trip to Africa. Wow. But this, you know, everything to me is synchronicity. You know, like I was acting, I was on Neighbours a few times and Chances and Blue Healers and shows like that. And one day all my friends were going, you should go on the show Man Oh Man. You would do really well. And I'm like, no, come on. And then one day I thought, okay, I'll make a phone call. So I rang the casting agent, and the woman that picked up the phone, I knew her. It's Jan Russ, who cast Neighbours. She cast him about 5 times in Neighbours. And she said, Anthony, you want to be on Man Oh Man? And I said, well, yeah, maybe. She goes, I'll put you on next week. So I was on straight away. Before I knew it, everyone else was being pushed into the pool, and I was the winner. And I won a $10,000 trip to Africa, which is the place I really wanted to go. So it was a whole life-changing experience. I walked away from my life here and wandered around Africa for about 9 months hitchhiking. And then I travelled around Europe on my own for about 2.5 years. And then I was lost. I didn't know what I was going to do if I come back to Australia. So my
You were making art while you were away?
I was drawing out of tubes constantly, obsessively, all these really detailed drawings with the big biro and pencils. And my sister, I'd send them home to my sister, her to look after them because I just had a backpack. She sent them into RMIT, and they said, we'd really like to interview this guy. So they gave me the last interview out of all the interviews. They interviewed a lot of people because there was about 2,500 applications for that degree. Now accepted 52 students.
It was fine art? Or?
Fine art, yeah.
Yep.
3-year, full-time fine art course. So I flew back, you know, shitting myself that if I didn't get in, what was I going to do?
Because you've given up on the acting thing now?
I lost interest in it.
Okay.
I was cast in a big Shakespeare production in London, and I quit. The script was immense. I was playing the lead role of Pericles. It was so much dialogue to learn. I was working in a bar, getting paid £3 an hour, shit job, 10-hour shifts, 6 days a week. And I thought, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to do it. I was drawing all the time. I locked myself in. I was in a house with 18 people.
Wow.
Yeah.
In London?
Yeah. I had a bunk room with 6 people in the bunk room. It was the pits. And I said to the guy that ran the house, look, I will give anything if you can give me my own space. And he said to me, look, the only space I've got is the boiler room for the showers, tiny room. So I said, I'll take it. So I found an old busted up table on the street, put it back together, put it into the room, hung all my clothes on the wall because there was no room to put them anywhere else. There was no wardrobe, nothing. And I started drawing obsessively all the time. And those drawings got me into art school in the end.
How would you describe the style of those drawings looking back on them now?
They were people would call them surrealist. They were very detailed, very Dali-esque. But that's when I realised that I actually wasn't making the drawings. I wasn't thinking of them. I would just start drawing, and one thing led to another, and before I knew it, I'd created a very detailed, very psychedelic in its own way, detailed drawing. And people would look at them and go, wow, these are amazing. I go, I know where it came from. It just came out of me, but I didn't think of it. That's when I realised that I wasn't making my own work. Because in my career, I've made hundreds and hundreds of paintings. Because I've been very blessed to make a living out of my art for about 30 years.
Which is very, very good from an artist's perspective.
Very rare. That means I don't have to think about doing anything else. I had shit jobs in London and all that kind of stuff, but then once I backed myself into the first art fair, I saved all my money up, got into the first art fair and thought, I'm just going to chuck everything I've got at this and see if it works. In the first art fair at the exhibition buildings, I was the smash hit. I made $35,000 in...
What year is this?
In 4 days.
35 grand?
In 4 days.
Wow.
By the fifth art fair, I was making $90,000 in 4 days.
And how many works? Is it like...
Oh, look, it started off with... I paid for my own space. At the time, it cost $4,500, which was a year's saving for me working shit jobs. But I knew that was my chance. If it was going to work, I was going to fail big or I was going to succeed. Lucky for me, it worked because people started going to my booth. I had a friend helping me because he needed to have an assistant. I lied to get into it. I said I had my own gallery, and I knew they wouldn't check, and they didn't. So I bluffed my way into it, got into it. And then the second year, they asked me to give a talk at the art fair. And they advertised it in The Age. 110 people booked tickets to hear me talk after the first year.
Wow.
So when I earned the $35,000, that was enough to keep me going for a year. But also, I got an invitation to exhibit in Sydney, Perth, the Gold Coast. So I had all these shows lined up, and then I never looked back from there.
Wow.
Kept on making money from the next show. And then I was doing art fairs. I did an art fair in Zurich. I did an art fair in Sydney, in Brisbane. In Brisbane, I was the pin-up boy. I was in the newspapers, everything. So it just escalated, you know.
And this is on the back of RMIT, or you did this with
the back of RMIT?
So you did the course for how long? 4 years?
3 years full time.
Right, and that helped you think, learn the ins and outs of the industry, or learns more about?
It doesn't help with any. Really, it helps because I think the only way you can develop your own style as any creative is repetition. That's what I always say to people. You're not born with the style. The style comes through repetition, making more and more and more and more and more. Eventually you fall upon a style that's uniquely yours, but it only comes through repetition. That's what I've experienced. So because I was locked in at RMIT, I just loved having a studio. I was in there on the weekends. I was in there during the week. I just made art. You know.
And that's really interesting that you say it's all about repetition, because I've heard other people say similar things. If you try and force a style, it doesn't come across very genuine. It looks like you're trying to do something that you're not naturally supposed to do.
Yeah. If you go to an exhibition, like at the NGV, of let's say James Gleeson, I don't know if you know him, the surrealist artist. Yep. Okay, you look at it, the whole show. It goes through his early work to his later works. His early works is him emulating artists that he liked that were surrealists. And then all of a sudden he finds his style through repetition. Keeps making more and more paintings until he finds his style that's uniquely James Gleeson. And I was a big James Gleeson fan. And his work was amazing. But he only discovered James Gleeson through repetition, not through being born with it. You're not born with it. You know, you've got to keep doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it and be disciplined, determined and focused on production.
Do you think that sometimes people who are naturally good at drawing or painting, that can stifle their artisticness because they're not trying to do things over and over and they're focusing too much about just the, realistic looking stuff?
Well, I think if you're good at drawing, you're usually good at emulating something that you've looked at and you're copying or doing your own version of it. But the only way you can break out of that, this is just my opinion, of course, is repetition. Repetition. Because then when you do repetition, a lot of stuff, you don't care anymore. And that's the place you want to get to, where you're not over-precious. I've met artists that have come to me and gone, what do you think of my work? And I go, I don't like giving opinions on people's work because I think it's just unfair, like art competitions, I think, are unfair as well. I'd say, you want me to give you my honest opinion? You look like you're afraid to make a mistake. And they go, fuck, I am. I said, well, they can tell by your work, you know? It's no slight on you, but you're afraid to get it wrong. And you have to get rid of that mindset because there's nothing to get wrong. There's no such thing as a mistake. Every mark you make will transport you to the next mark. It's a never-ending process. It doesn't end anywhere, doesn't begin anywhere once you're in it. And I was very blessed to just make art and design productions and write my own productions for 30 years. That's a blessing. I don't have to do anything else. I don't have to go to work every day or nothing. So, of course, I just threw myself into it and just created a massive body of work.
Yep.
Yeah.
So after those initial, the first one, there's a success, the next one you do the talk, all of a sudden you're a professional artist. Does responsibility come with that? Do you feel like, all right, I can't just make the art I want to make now, people are expecting things? Does it harm your creative process?
Well, the interesting thing about it is that if people ask me what I did before that first art fair, I would say, well, I'm a builder's labourer. I work in a cafe. I would be honest about where my money came from. But once I made that $35,000, I thought, I don't have to work for a year. And I've got 4 shows lined up interstate. So now what do I say to people? I had to say, I'm actually an artist. But that was so uncomfortable because I thought, I haven't got the right to say that. But then I thought, well, I'm not doing anything else. So I have to say that. So I started to say it and I got used to saying it. And then I think because I got used to saying it, the reality of that impregnated itself into my reality. And the second art fair made 50-something thousand, second 64,000. Then I started doing art fairs in Sydney and make 55,000, 60,000. And then in the end I was making 90,000 in 4 days, had a big manager, had the biggest space in the art fair. So it was a monumental production that it went to.
Do you credit that to your hard work, or do you credit that to saying I'm an artist and believing it within yourself?
Well, a bit of both, but I had to produce. And, you know the saying pot boiler? Okay, I couldn't make any pot boilers. I remember being on the plane flying to Queensland for an exhibition, a big exhibition at a huge gallery there. And I picked up the Aeroplane magazine and started reading it. It was a story on David Laity. Remember him? And he said, you know, before I became known, I could afford to make quite a few duds every year. But now I can't. I have to make, everything has to be of the same quality. It can be different, but it has to be in the same quality. And the quality comes from repetition, you know. And when I read that article, I thought, wow, I get it now because this is happening to me, you know. So I would do exhibitions in Queensland or Sydney, 30, 40 pieces, individual pieces. None of them could be pot boilers. They had to be of a certain standard. Some people like one more than the other or think they're all shit, but I had to be happy with it, and that's all that mattered to me, was that I could let it go at the studio door and feel I could let it go. I was contented with it. I did my best, you know.
How did you feel about the industry side of that world? Like, obviously you needed to do it to make money, but were you enjoying, or did you dislike the industry that it revolved around?
I would say, honestly, I just like the industry more so now than then.
So you were young, a bit more naive then, or how it worked?
Well, a bit different model, because back then, you know, a gallery would approach you and say, we want to show you, and they would help cultivate your career. They would do all the media, they would get all the magazine articles, they'd do everything like that. They'd manage the show, they'd hang the show, they'd curate the show. All I had to do was fly in from interstate, turn up at the opening and make sure the work was there, you know, and that's all I had to do. But now it's all Instagram, everyone's competing against everyone. Every second person's an artist. It's a different model. I wouldn't want to be in that realm now. That's why eventually, which only a few years ago it was, I wanted to switch over to public art shows because I didn't like commercial shows and where it had all gone to.
Yep.
And all the commercial galleries that were any good had closed down. And I used to have great relationships with my dealers, but all that went out the window because the dealers weren't interested in relationships anymore. They were interested in putting something on the wall that would make them quick bucks if they had a gallery, because the galleries were all struggling because the artists were competing against the gallery, you know. So when I found a way into the public art scene through my big show I did at Burrinja Cultural Centre, the curator there said, this show should be put on the public agenda, and he put it on, and you got to wait for someone to ring up and say, we want the show. So you can sit around for fucking years waiting for that to happen. But I got nibbles early on straight away. So I got my second public show, then my third public show. But now that I'm dying from cancer, I'm not going to get many more public shows, even though I just finished a show in Wodonga. But I love that area much more so than the old commercial gallery scene, because it's engaging kids too. You know, my show in Wodonga, I created a whole installation with kids to interact with, and the gallery supported me, helped me, put it all up, curated it all. You know, different model completely.
Yep. And if you were going to do more shows, that's the route. Commercial's not the way forward for you.
Not for me, no. I still do the odd commercial show because I've got a lot of connections, and people would say, we'd like to do a show of your work. I've got a show now in a cafe in Upway.
Yep.
You know, because they approached me and said, we'd love to put some of your pictures up. So I can't make hardly anything anymore. I've just finished an installation in Heidelberg, all the doors and revolving head sculptures, and Emily's going to take that over.
Awesome.
But, you know, I can't do that stuff anymore. I'm just too ill, too disabled. Yeah.
So if we're getting back on your journey, after you became successful with the art shows, and you had your own studio, you pretended you had your own gallery. Did you eventually do that, or did you just work in your own studio? What was your next step?
I took over a building space in St Kilda and did it all up and turned it into a very bohemian kind of hangout spot in the studio, and had little shows, underground shows. It became very popular to the point where the council closed me down.
What street was that on?
It was on Carlisle Street under the railway bridge.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, it was a massive success for what it was. I thought one day I'm going to try and do this legally. So I ended up buying a church in Carnegie. And it was the church was derelict. It was falling into the ground. It was rat shit. It should have been pulled down. It's a long story how I got my hands on it. It was a miracle, you know. 3 years of building, and I was in the trenches building every day, developing, because I love working with my hands. Got it open, big, massive success. I had 14 classes a week there, put on exhibitions, put on events, put on concerts, everything. And then I got diagnosed with leukemia, given 3 months to live, and I was rat shit. Yeah.
And you didn't know that, because we've found out later that it is something that is a genetic thing for you, but you didn't know that at the time?
No, I didn't know that at the
So
time.
you were just unwell, not feeling good. You think, I'm overly stressed with this venture. You go to the doctor and they give you this news.
I started to feel really weak. Actually, a woman, I was on the front page of the local paper for an exhibition that I hosted there for people with mental health problems. And And the woman, a friend of a friend, saw the cover and went, that guy is not well. To her, she comes and tells me. And I knew that I was losing my mojo, but I didn't know why. And then...
Were you living unhealthily?
Oh, look, I took a lot of drugs and partied a lot, but also I lived really healthy because I was bodybuilding, competed in Mr. Australia 3 times. I won 2 powerlifting titles.
Wow.
Yeah.
Powerlifting.
Yeah.
So how big were you at that point?
96 kilos of muscle. Wow. Now I'm 54 kilos.
Almost half.
Of emaciation. I mean, I did it all drug-free. I bench pressed 145 kilos, deadlifted 250, and squatted 225 kilos in my last comp. And then I retired because all the people in the federation were a lot of them using steroids, the guys I was competing against, and they were like, how can you outlift me taking no drugs? And I said, I'm not taking fucking anything, But then in the end, I got sick of it, so I thought, I don't need this shit anymore because I've already proven to myself about mind over matter. Because every lift I did, 6 lifts in 2 comps that I qualified in the nationals in 2 weight divisions, I did without taking any steroids. And I PB'd every lift I did. Yeah.
And you think that's just a mental thing rather than a brute strength thing?
Definitely. Because I'd hold the bar on the platform, the judges would be standing there, and they after a minute, they'd clap, saying, you go lift now, you're going to lose the lift. And I would just put everything, my mind into it 100%. And 6 times in a row, I lifted weights off the platform that I couldn't lift in the gym.
Wow.
6 times in a row.
Just channeling mental strength.
Yeah, just seeing myself lift it. And then all of a sudden, I'm standing up on the platform and the judges are clapping to say that I've lifted it. I'm going, fuck, amazing. And that taught me about the mind over matter.
It's an interesting 2 different disciplines, the art world and the powerlifting world. How did you get into both of those?
Because when I was younger, I was a good footballer. I played for Victoria, and I trained with Collingwood for 3 months. And at Collingwood, I got into weight training, and that just kept going. I knew I wasn't going to make the cut at Collingwood. I was there for 3 months, but I knew I was going to make the cut. I wasn't good enough, and I was too weak on the left side of my body, which really mattered. Because when you played games against good teams, like we used to play against Melbourne Reserves and practice matches, they'd run me onto my left foot. And running at 100 miles an hour on your left foot, I couldn't hit a target, So
you took the lifting, yeah.
Yeah, it was an amazing experience for the mind, definitely. To pick up a weight that you could never pick up before, and you're holding it in your arms and you're going, it's off the ground, I lifted the fucking thing. It's quite an amazing experience about the mind over the matter, Yeah.
And so when you stopped competing, did you do that just for fun for a period of time?
Oh, yeah, because I loved weight training.
Yeah.
That's what I miss the most now. I loved exercising intensely. I had to push myself like a Trojan. I loved it. But now I can't do anything. I can't lift anything. I'm weak. I can't even support my own body weight anymore. Yeah.
So with your diagnosis then, obviously it comes as a shock. What's your initial thought process? You're like, I'm going to try and beat this thing, but or you just, it must have taken you really by surprise.
Oh, it did, yeah. Especially when I started to feel really weak and lose my mojo, I felt the life force draining out of me. And after the ayahuasca ceremony, which gave me incredible insights,
So you did that after the diagnosis?
I did that as soon as I knew that I had myelodysplastic syndrome, which is a direct correlation to leukemia.
Okay.
I was already getting weak. I was struggling to walk properly. I was getting very weak. And I knew then that I was heading down the tube.
And so then you had friends that I guess had done those ceremonies before. You reach out to them and say, I'm interested in doing this?
There was a group in the hills that used to run them, very well organised. And so I got into doing that. I connected to that with a friend of mine and did an ayahuasca ceremony. But it was incredible insight to me because I got 2 major... It's hard to explain to somebody who hasn't done it before, but I got 2 major insights implanted into my mind. Because you're not told anything, it's implanted. but it's clearer than this conversation with you. The first one was, you just are. And as soon as any question entered my mind, what does that mean? I was told emphatically, you just are. You're not sick, you're not well, you're not old, you're not young. You just are, and you always will be. Your spirit will live on forever. You will never die. And the second one was, we make something out of everything, which was teaching me, we say, this is hot, this is cold, this is bad, this is good. And as soon as you name something and give it a title, you limit its potential. So I try and refrain from doing as much as possible, you know.
So labels and names are no good.
Well, as soon as you say, this is a shit experience, it is a shit experience,
Okay.
you know. So as soon as you label things, you'll limit its potential to be something else. You know, when you're in hospital and you're dying, and you've been told you're going to die and you're really sick and you're struggling for your life, or you're on life support, or you're in ICU, or you've got to really harness your mind into realising that you're not your disease, you're not your body, you're not your mind, you're not your way of thinking, you're far more than that. And that's what pulled me through, channeling into that. Because I'd be in hospital thinking, I'm fucked, I can't walk, I can't hardly breathe, or in ICU, 8 days in ICU on a mask, thinking they're saying to me, your lungs will never recover from this, you know that, don't you? So 8 days, my lungs recovered, you know. I got off the mask. Then I spent 2.5 years on life support, you know, at home. It's just a horrible experience. I got to connect every day, disconnect every day, because I asked them to teach me how to do it myself. Because I knew that if I did peritoneal dialysis myself and didn't do hemodialysis, it would save my heart. So I said, well, teach me, I'll do it myself. But when you do it yourself, it's a huge risk, because if you touch the end of the pipe when you're connecting it, get an infection. The infection is extremely painful, because I got one infection. Yeah.
So after the diagnosis and the ayahuasca, you learnt that we just are?
Yeah.
And is that sort of like how people say there's no past, there's no future, there's just sort of now? Similar sort of thing?
Yeah. And in the now, you know, wherever I was in the now, I was. That was it. I had to accept it and surrender to it. So if I'm lying in a hospital bed, I'm throwing up, whatever it is, I have to find a way to surrender to it. Because if I try and resist what is, I'll just suffer more.
So then what happens to the space that you've got, your gallery, your place in Carnegie?
I had to sell it. I couldn't run it anymore. You know, I was in hospital all the time. I was so sick. You know, it was so tragic, because I set it up to operate so brilliantly. It was so successful, and it fed the community. I was doing all this. I was able to have a huge impact on the community. Mm-hmm. I was able to run, you know, events that raised money for other people. I raised $22,000 on one event for a guy with a brain tumour who died, for his family. So I was able to do things like that, have bands playing there, everything. And all of a sudden that was gone. In 2 years, gone. I couldn't do anything anymore to sell the building.
And that obviously is heartbreaking, because you built that thing that you were so happy and you thought that was going to continue for forever, but then you had to let that baby go.
Yeah.
But you had to do the greater. You had to think about the big picture which was your personal health, because that would have been too stressful on you to even think about it.
It was a big operation, and I restored the building it was in 1910. The church was built. I restored it to 1910, better than it ever was. It cost me a fortune, into massive debt, and then when I was nearly finished the building, somebody broke in and set fire to the building.
What?
Burnt the whole top floor out, which was an apartment, and built in the roof as well. Burnt the first floor, which is my studio and my home, and $360,000 worth of damage. And then the insurance company said, you know what, we're not going to pay you. Because they're like, well, what's this guy going to do? He's broke, he's rat shit, you know, he's not going to take us to court. I took him to court.
You won?
I took the Commonwealth Bank to court. It was extremely stressful. In the end, I got a payout, but the payout was shit. But I rebuilt the church. We had a street festival. All my friends were amazing. We closed off the whole street, had bands like Rebecca Barnard playing in a truck tray, and we created this incredible festival for the day, raised $22,000. So me and my carpenter went back in there, pulled down all the burnt floor and everything, and started again to rebuild the building, and we rebuilt it. Yeah.
And then you had to sell it.
they had to sell it.
Wow.
It was very stressful, very difficult.
And in the while, your health is, you've been told that your days are numbered almost.
Yeah. I mean, then I wasn't, when I rebuilt the building, I was well enough to do it because I was working every day I could there. I was there every day and going into court as well. And the Commonwealth Bank, I hate to say it because I'll probably get in trouble because I had to sign a thing I'd say I wouldn't mention their names. They tried every dirty thing they could in the book to ruin me. They would they'd withhold documents and we'd go into court with my lawyer and they said, oh, you can't have access to those documents. And we had to go to court for a day to get access to the documents at $10,000 cost. And the documents are empty. There's nothing in there. It's just everything they could do to set me broke and to stress me out, to ruin me, which made me more resilient and more determined. But it was a very stressful time.
Yeah, I could imagine.
Yeah.
And so are you, at this point, you're still making art?
I'm not making a great deal because I'm just too unwell. But I just finished some panels for Heidelberg for a big installation with a developer, which is really cool because he said I can do whatever I want. So that's music to my ears.
Yeah.
So I made them, but I'd make them in bed, bit by bit, a little bit every day, and I'd be too wrecked. I have to lie down all the time, because I'm just too unwell. I've got the energy. Yeah.
So after you sell the church, the next chapter, what happens there? Obviously, you're still unwell, but where do you go? Where do you go to from your journey?
After I sold the church, well, I spent months in hospital, fighting for my life. Yeah, with leukemia. Yeah, I was very, very ill, as you can imagine. Myeloid acute leukemia. My brother only lasted 11 months.
So where did his diagnosis come in with yours?
He was 11 years older than me, so he died in 1994. What year I was diagnosed, I can't remember now. Had a bone marrow transplant in 2015. So probably 2012,
Yep.
around then, I was diagnosed. But, at the time when I got the same leukemia as my brother, we all knew something was going strange. Just so unlikely that two brothers would get exactly the same leukemia. But never did I think it was going to be genetic.
Yeah.
Never did I expect to live this long,
Because they literally gave you months at the start.
Oh, yeah. I watched my brother die, So I thought, well, I'm going to die like him. He was a fucking wreck when he died. You can imagine he was emaciated. It was horrible to watch him die. I was very close to him and I loved him dearly. So it was very sad, very tragic. Yeah.
So then after that, you're fighting for your life, but you still want to make art as best you can.
Well, I got them to bring a table into I was in an isolation room when I was getting a bone marrow transplant because they kill your immune system off to implant another one. So you're very susceptible to dying. A lot of people, 20%, 25% people, they told me this directly, 20%, 25% chance you'll die from the bone marrow transplant. It's very common. It's a very difficult thing to survive. So I got them to bring a table into my isolation room because I was alone in an isolation room all the time, day after day, month after month, and I would draw. And a lot of those drawings I did, they're in the hospital now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I've donated about 12, 14 pieces to the hospital. Yeah.
So then do you have more solo shows after that when you're well enough?
Even though I struggled for the last 11 years, I've just kept going. Every time I got a chance, I just keep going. Keep producing, keep mounting shows as best I can because it gives me purpose and that's all that really matters. For me, purpose is vital. If the purpose often for me was getting through the day, breathing through the day, surviving the day, that was the purpose. And I'd focus on that purpose to get through that day.
Yep.
And then the next day, I'd have a different purpose, because you're wrestling with the fact that you could die at any moment, and you're really, really ill. So you've got to think of something. And, you know, when people say to me, or someone said to me today, I'm waiting to discover my purpose, I said, you'll be waiting a long time. Because your purpose is not looking for you. You've got to invent a purpose every day. The purpose can be simple, can be complicated, doesn't matter. You've got to have a purpose. It's so vital. I see young people now who have no purpose, no interest, apathy. I think, well, just make something up. It doesn't matter what it is. Just make up the purpose. You know, you need something to get you to the end of the day.
Did it change when the diagnosis happened? Did it change your spirituality? Obviously, the ayahuasca potentially did as well, but did you already have a spirit? Were you on a spiritual journey before that? Or did it change the way you were thinking?
I know I was a member of the Buddhist temple, had a practice, was very into it. But of course, when you're faced with those sort of things, it can't help but change you. You know.
In which capacity and what? How did it change you personally?
Well, it changed me in the way. One way was I learned to dig deeper for a purpose and a way to get through the day. I learned to dig deeper, to surrender to the reality of what was and not judge it by saying this is a bad experience or a good experience. I thought this is just an experience. Who's to say it's good? Who's to say it's bad? I can tell many stories about how my illness, my struggle to live has enriched my life, you know. So I don't look back at it and go, I begrudge this happening to me, because it was meant to happen to me and it did happen to me. And how I respond to it is all that matters, you know, instead of judging the experience and saying, it's not fair, you know, why me? Anyone can say that. And when you're in the hospital seeing people around you dying all the time, they're all saying, a lot of them saying the same thing, but a lot of them are amazing because they accept their reality full on, and it gives them an incredible sense of spirit, you know, and connection to spirit.
Did it take you long to come to terms with the fact that, well, we're all going to die at some stage, but when a doctor or someone tells you this is, you know, the beginning of the end, is it take you a while to come to terms with that? Did you think for a while, well, no, I'm going to beat this, I'm going to beat the odds?
Well, initially, when I was diagnosed with leukemia, I went out into the hospital yard and cried with my sister, and then I went, you know what? This is going to be a trippy experience, you know? And that's the headspace I took. And I was surprised I said that to myself. So that's another thing I think was given to me and I didn't think of it. And it was a trippy experience because you're living, everything matters when you're in that situation, you know? And everyone goes, yeah, but I know I'm going to die, so everything matters anyway. And I go, no, it doesn't. When your life's hanging over your head and you know it could expire at any time, everything matters. So you have an intensity of reality. And that intensity of reality can be extremely rewarding on many levels.
Yep. Yeah. And obviously you were weaker and it was harder for you to make art, but did it change the way that the style or the direction of your art at all once that's a big bookmark in your life before the diagnosis and then after, you know?
Yeah, my art became much more psychedelic, especially after my DMT experiences and LSD experiences. I'd had them for years, and my work became much more psychedelic, you know, because I'd go look at plants and I could see the inner working of the plant. The plant was talking to me. I'm going, well, I need to find a language to articulate this for me, you know, and that's what I started to do. So my work became much more psychedelic, in a way.
And that was just a reflection on your eyes had been opened up a little bit more.
Yeah. And even people would come to work I'd done in that period and say, you've used ayahuasca, haven't you? You've used LSD. Because they could tell, people who used it could tell that I had used it because it opened my third eye, whatever you want to call it, to a whole different reality.
Yeah.
And seeing the inner workings of a plant, like it's talking to you, right in front of you, and it happens over and over again because you're using it regularly, it's a mind-blowing experience. But you've got to, my best friend and I did about 20 DMT experiences with a friend of mine who's an expert in DMT. He started getting really cocky about it. And I said to him, mate, the plant has its own consciousness. It knows that you're getting cocky with it. It's going to put you on your ass. He just laughed at me. Sure enough, next time he did it, put him on his ass. He got extreme anxiety, fear, panic, and he never recovered. He'd never done it since.
Mm-hmm.
It really fucked him up.
Because he lost the respect for the,
Exactly. You've got to respect the plant. The plant's doing you a service, and as soon as you make it into something that you just casually take for fun, it's a different reality. I do lots of drugs for fun, for sure. But when I got into plant medicines, I went, my God, I need to respect this shit because this shit is serious.
Yep.
There's no mucking around here.
And I'm guessing that after you went on the plant experience and you figured out you need to respect things. Are you changing your diet and you start to living a little bit more cleanly as well after that? Because you've got to respect your body more.
I always lived cleanly because I was training obsessively. I was competing. So I was always, a health animal. And I was a personal trainer as well. So I trained other people, did their diets for them, everything. So I was really well educated in all that field. Yeah.
You've done so much stuff that I didn't know. I've known you for a few years, and there's a lot of stuff there that I had no idea, man. It's really interesting.
Oh, I don't really go around talking about it all,
No, but we've had a fair few conversations down the beach and that sort of thing, and there's a lot that I didn't know. I knew a lot of the art stuff, but the powerlifting, the playing footy, the personal training stuff, I didn't know. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I was very into the fitness thing because, when you train really hard, you get really into it. It's a transcendence of the mind as well. It's not really different from art, When you're holding a bar and you're going, I've never lifted this bar before, even doing 10 reps of 100 kilos in the gym or 15 reps of 100 kilos in the gym for the first time, you're transcending a different reality from what you're used to, And all that's really great because it shows you that transcendence of reality is possible at any time, And that has certainly been imprinted into me for a long time.
Yeah.
And so I even believe, once I started to make a living off my art, I bought my property outright for cash for my art. And I never made art to make money. That's the beauty of it all. I didn't make work thinking, this is going to sell, that's going to sell. I don't know what's going to sell. I can't speak for somebody else. But I've seen artists who make work thinking, that one sold, so this one will sell too. And I've never been like that. Not saying no put down to anyone else who thinks that way, but I learnt, for me, that's not the way to go. So I always would keep on reinventing myself. So I'd get collectors who would want to buy another giant head that I did because they already had 10. One dealer in Sydney said, this guy already owns 10 of your pictures. He wants another one. And I said, why do you want another one? Because every time you do one, it's different. He wants a different one. So that's stuff that would happen. But the difference comes through risk. Risk is paramount. I'd always risk what I'd done before to try something new. I'd never lie back on my laurels. I didn't care about making money. I didn't care about being successful financially. I just cared about transcending my own reality space, my own mind, and that's what I was motivated to do.
But you're lucky because it hasn't really seemed like you've had too many failures. Every time you've just put trust and faith in what comes out, it seems to work for you. It's not like anyone said, nah, this is no good, go back to the drawing board. No,
it's true. I mean, even my opera that I wrote, which 7 dancers, massive production, I did the first version of it down at New Quay. But everything, it's amazing how things just happen. I mean, New Quay had a gallery down there, a new gallery. They asked me if I'd do a show there. I said, yeah. And then the curator down there said, we want to turn New Quay into the art precedent of Melbourne. And they said, have you got any ideas? I said, well, I've got this production I've written. I showed them the script. It's people moving around in a giant painting that I'd drawn, and I've got arrows pointing where they go. And they're going, what the fuck is this? And I go, but they just gave me, they went and raised $35,000. They built an auditorium for it. Went on to New Quay, big success, really out there production of me creating a giant painting in front of a live audience for 7 dancers, being incorporated into the painting, playing colours that bring the colour to me. And then it went on to become a big production in 2013 at Chapel Off Chapel, multimedia production, very expensive production. And at the time I thought, you know what, this could be the biggest failure of my life. There's no way I can escape this because there's nothing like this around that I've ever seen. Not that I'm saying I'm original because nothing's original, but it went on and in the end it was sold out. we had queues of people wanting to get tickets for it, and the show in the other theatre, the small theatre, failed. I couldn't get an audience. And every night we've got 220 people packing into this theatre to watch this show that was just so out there, so different,
But you took a risk.
That's the key. You've got to take risk. I always say, because I give talks sometimes to students, or, I gave a talk at McKinnon Secondary School. I always say to them, risk is so important. And if you feel afraid, that means you're out of your comfort zone. So I used to get off on being afraid. Where people avoid being afraid, but I would never avoid being afraid. As soon as I felt afraid, I knew I was outside of my comfort zone. The only time you can evolve is outside your comfort zone. You can't evolve in your comfort zone.
No. Safety is not what creative people need, Like that just, it becomes very monotone and boring. You need risk. You need to live on the edge like that.
You do. It's so important. But because I was brought up being abused, I was brought up being hypervigilant. My father was going to bash me again tonight, all that kind of stuff. So I was hypervigilant, So risk was really a friend to me. I enjoyed being hypervigilant because I was used to it. Not because I enjoyed it, but because I was brought up being hypervigilant.
Just your normality.
It was my new normal.
Did you ever confront your dad at any stage when you were older and sort of, say anything about that sort of physical abuse?
My father, in the end, became my great friend. When I quit my full-time job, which was another huge risk, I didn't know what to do. I didn't have any friends in the arts at all. To venture into a different life, all I knew was I had to leave what I was doing. So I had a full-time job in the rag trade. I thought, this is not my fucking life. What am I doing here? So I quit with nothing to go into. My father said, you're a fucking loser. You amount to nothing. You should have kept your job. You're an idiot. He just ran me down. So I went out there and I started to find a different life. It was a lot of effort, a lot of fear, and a lot of uncertainty. But that's what I did. And all of a sudden, I went from having friends that were footballers and cricketers that were impossible to talk to about emotional stuff to becoming completely different. Once I got into the arts, I met people with remarkable minds, sensitive, able to talk to be close to, because I was playing footy and cricket, because I was good at it, I was very accepted in those clubs. But all the guys there would speak about women in derogatory ways, fuck this, fuck that, all that kind of, and really into drinking. And I hated that culture, but I put up with it because I was accepted in it and I was good at what I did in it. But when I got out into the arts, I thought, oh my God, why didn't I discover this before?
These are my people.
Yeah, but when you don't know how to get out of it, you're in it. Now it seems easy because I'm in it. But back then it was almost impossible.
Yeah. But your dad was supportive in the end?
My father would drink, come to my exhibition openings and break down.
Feel guilty?
Well, he used to say, I'm so sorry about beating you when you were a kid. You go through all that with me. Right. But then the next day I'd forget he said anything, I'd bring it up and he'd go, oh, I don't remember saying that. But in the end, he would say, you did what I didn't do. He got a safe job in the Housing Commission, worked in a job he hated, had a cleaning job. And I said, there's no fucking way I'm doing that. So I took a huge risk and just backed myself. And my father was, in the end, was like, oh my God, look what you've done. You come to my openings, there'd be a full house, all the work would be selling. My father would go, I can't believe what you've done, So it really opened his eyes up. And when I had the fire in my church and I'd blown all the money I had, my father reverse mortgaged the family home and gave me $280,000 for me to continue building. I nearly lost all the money, but somehow I pulled myself out. It was a miracle. My father took that back to me in that way because he saw how driven I was and motivated and that I seemed to make things happen. So he backed me and I'm eternally grateful for that.
Yeah, it's awesome that you got to repair that damaged relationship. You're right.
Well, I was there on his deathbed with him to the end.
Yep.
You know.
Was it hard, like, as someone who's never been physically abused, was it hard to push past that and see him as a father figure?
Oh yeah, I hated him when I was younger.
Yeah.
Hated him. Me and my brother we lived on a back lane, and we used to go. He had a cupboard at the back of the house. It was an old weatherboard, but my father never had any money. He had a cupboard full of beer. We used to go out there at night time, steal the cans of beer and smash them in the laneway. Because we were so angry with him for being such a fucking asshole, you know.
Yeah. That was your way of just getting one back on him.
Yeah. He would just turn on us. We didn't need any justification. He was miserable. He was in a miserable marriage with mother. My mother was a very cold woman, and she detested my father. My father detested her. My father would get drunk, walk past her bedroom, and go, "You're a fucking bitch. You're a fucking bitch" to her. Right where we could hear it. We're 6-year-old kids. You know, this was like this every weekend. Yeah.
Yeah. Man, that's a lot. And it's so remarkable that out of that misery, such bright, happy, psychedelic art can come out of it, you know?
Well, on my father's deathbed, my sister and I said to him, "Please, can you apologise to Paul for bashing him when he was younger?" He used to bash my brother more than me, because my brother would go, hit me again, and I'd go, "Don't hit me anymore, you've hurt me." So I'd feign injury. My brother would do the opposite. So my dad would just hit him again and again and again and again. And he wouldn't do it. On his deathbed. He died 2 days later. He wouldn't do it.
He wouldn't apologise?
No. And we were so disappointed. Like,
Own it. Yeah.
Own it. It might not change his life, because my brother ended up becoming, addicted to drugs, had a very tough. He's still alive, but he's had a tough path, and a lot of it's from being abused badly. Definitely, no doubt about it. Yeah.
A lot of people do have that trauma that do get, they just can't deal with it, and then substance abuse happens, and that's because people don't know how to deal with it. They don't go through the therapy, and they just don't deal with it, and they find vices. It happens pretty much almost all the time.
Yeah, true. It does. Yeah.
So we're talking about your dad, but then you're also a father. So how did that change your life? Because it is one of the most life-changing things that can happen to a person is having a kid.
Yeah, it is. I kind of felt instinctively I was always going to have a child, but I couldn't see how it was possible because I was married to my work. So opportunities I had to get married or be with people long term, even though it was heart-wrenching for me, I said, no, I'm not doing it. I'm married to my calling, and my calling is what I'm doing, and I'm not going to give it up. But then I ended up getting somebody pregnant, somebody I didn't want to be in a relationship with, and she insisted on having the child, and I was not into that at the time. Mm-hmm. Now I'm grateful because I've got a son, we have a good relationship. But it's been very hard because he just came out to visit me recently. I tried to see him, I saw him every second day he was here, but I can't do things with him properly, because I'm too ill, I'm too disabled. So it's been very tough. Initially, when he was born, I held him first. I was in his life. I was driving down the coast here to be with him all the time, doing things with him, running down the beach with him, playing with him. And then when leukemia came, I'm like, game over, Yeah. I couldn't have that relationship with you anymore.
You can chat to him still,
I still do.
But the thing is, I guess it makes it harder for you to do physical,
Yeah, because he lives in Holland.
Now,
Yeah. So it makes it hard. But I still have a relationship with him, a good relationship. We get along really well. Yep. He actually went and got a tattoo. I organised it for him. He's 16. He came out here to see me.
Oh, wow.
And he wanted to get a tattoo. But he wanted to get my name on his forearm. So I had a tattoo artist I knew who would do him, even though he's underage in Australia, 16.
As long as the parental permission, is that legal?
No, it's illegal in Australia.
Oh, wow.
You've got to be 18. In Holland, you can be 12.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, don't say who it is. We don't want to get them in trouble.
No, I say it is. But they did it. I was so grateful to them.
Right.
So we went down the coast and we did it.
Yep.
It was a tough trip because I'm, not very well. So
Yep.
it took a lot out of me, but it was amazing. And that's what he wanted.
Yep.
So I felt very honoured.
Did you mend the friendship with the mother? Was that hard at first?
It was because she met this guy she's with now. He's Dutch. He came out here and she fell for him, which is fine with me because I was happy that she was going to be happy. But then she went over to Holland to see him, and she rang me up from Holland and said, just asked if she could go for a month. And I said, okay. But I was very much in his life then, so I didn't really want him to go away for a month. And then she rang me and said, I'm pregnant to him now with somebody else, with another kid. And can I stay for 3 months? I'm like, fuck, what can I say? I can't say no. But by the time I saw him again after 3 months, he thought the other guy was his father.
How old was this? Like, it's obviously a pretty...
Three or four.
Okay, and that's a very sort of seminal time in his life as far as building relationships.
This guy's a lovely guy.
Yeah.
He's in his life every day. So I can understand what happened. But for me, it was like, I just want to give up on this. Because this is really demoralising for me.
Yep.
He's all over this other guy. He treats me like I'm a stranger, So I had to suck it up. So I sucked it up and kept going.
Yeah. And obviously that's still a touchy subject before you. Like it's a tough one. And at what stage did they move over there permanently?
Well, they came and asked me. I got a shock because he said to me, I don't want to move to Holland. I'm happy in Australia. But she said she wants to move to Holland. And they come and asked me when I had leukemia. So I was expected to live for only a few months and I would never see my son again.
Wow.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
But I let him go because I thought, it's not about me, She kept on saying, I have a better life in Holland, better community. But then he came and said to me when he got a bit older, it's bullshit. Holland is dangerous. There's kids at my school that carry knives, You're
allowed to get tattoos at 12 years old.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I got kind of a bit duped, really, but I don't mean to say it in a nasty way because I'm not resentful about it. I have a good relationship with her.
Yep.
But it was a very tough time to deal with all that, to see him thinking that someone else was his father when I'd been there from the beginning. Like when he was born, I had him first because poor Lisa had a cesarean and she was rat shit, So going from committing to being in his life, he was living down here and driving down here every week to spend time with him, driving home again. It was hard to see that and go through that, to have him kind of renounce me. But he didn't do it on purpose. He didn't know any better.
Yeah, it's just like kids are kids and they don't
No.
know, I don't think even at 3 years old you don't know that you're upsetting someone or hurting them. You're just I'm giving this guy a hug and I'm not giving you a hug and that's how it is and they don't understand.
Yeah.
Oh man.
It was more the fact that he didn't acknowledge me anymore. From acknowledging me all the time, because I was around all the time, to I became invisible. I was like, okay, so I can be a complete coward and just give up on this, or I can search for a way back. So I searched for a way back.
And how'd you do that?
I just kept on turning up. When he came back to Australia, I kept on turning up. I'm here again, I'm here again, I'm here again, I'm your dad. And that worked great because I have a great relationship with him now.
Awesome. Do you see, even though you haven't been with him that much, do you see qualities in him that you see from yourself?
No, not really.
Really?
No. I mean, I think every individual is born with their own journey to fulfill. Mm-hmm. He came to my studio a few times and gone to do some painting and stuff, but he's never really into it. He's more into petty crime and lighting fires and stuff like that. Right. Which is cool because I didn't want him to be like me, or I didn't lecture him about what I did and what I was doing. I just shut up about it because I thought he'll pick up that through what he sees, not what I say. Because my father would always say to me, you should do this, you should do that. Why are you giving up your job? You're a fucking idiot, blah, blah, blah. And what he used to do, what he used to show, illustrate, was extremely shit, you know. So I had no respect for him at that time. He was alcoholic, he was abusive, take out all his problems on me and my brother, because he hated his marriage, hated my mother. My mother was very cold. It was a difficult, you don't know, you get used to it, but it's a very difficult atmosphere to be brought up in. My mother, when my brother died, she went to the funeral, of course, and she bragged to me about not crying at the funeral. That's how cold my mother could be. She was a rare human being.
That's such an odd flex.
Oh, and she died miserably. She died with Alzheimer's. It was a miserable end to a miserable life. It was very sad.
Very sad, but I guess people grow up differently. You don't know what her childhood is. Maybe she was miserable because, you just don't know, do
No,
you?
she was born in Ireland and raised in a with servants and a gentleman farmer. Have you heard of a gentleman farmer?
No.
A gentleman farmer is like a farmer that runs a farm, has servants, everything, has money, and that's how she was brought up.
Wow.
So it's a very different reality. And I've been to Ireland a few times because I'm technically Irish. And I went and visited the place she was brought up in. It's a dressage farm now. That's the size of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes, very different to a weatherboard house in Caulfield.
A whole different reality, yeah.
So what brought her out here?
She met my father in Ireland, and he was a merchant seaman, and they got together, they got married. They didn't even really know each other. And she came out here with him. My brother and sister were born over there.
Right.
And he came out with her after that.
So interesting. Everyone's got such different stories, don't they?
Yeah,
Like
everyone's so
parents met and all that.
Everyone's so different.
Yeah, very, very different.
Yeah.
So with your own journey, we've obviously talked a fair bit about it, but you've also got your new project with the book.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us a bit about that?
Sure. It's my third book.
Mm-hmm.
Same publisher. It's called The Spirit Endures. It's stories from my life. Some of them, I don't know how people would perceive it, but they're...
Do you feel you're writing this from a different perspective because you're at this point of your journey?
Well, I know my time is limited. I've been working on the book for 3.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's been a slog. I wrote the first 2 drafts by hand. But now I've washed myself of it. I've got other people editing it, doing the layouts for it, because I can't anymore. I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
It's very personal. I have no fear about being an extremely open book, and the book is very open. I write about the death of my friend who walked in front of a train, my best friend at 27, and being with his body and nurturing his face and pushing the plates of his head, of his skull into his head, just gently, and just going, fuck, this is the deadest thing I've ever seen in my life. This guy used to be an actor, used to be on stage with him, he used to be so alive, and now there's nothing here anymore. And that was the first time I realised the body and the spirit are not the same thing. And there's many stories in the book along those lines, including the death of my brother, death of my father, death of my mother as well.
A lot of death in there.
Yeah, I was a stripper too, for 3.5 years. So the reality of that life, but I wanted to do that because I was always really into experience. I wanted to experience everything in my life. So when I got the opportunity to be a stripper, I was asked to work for this company. I said, sure, why not? I was scared, I was nervous, I was anxious about doing it. But once I got into it, it gave me incredible stories, incredible, on a stage show, 220 women going crazy. It's a whole different reality.
Yeah.
A whole different experience. One that you can't really articulate to someone unless you've experienced it. They'll be clawing me, jumping on me. It was mad.
I can say that I've never experienced that, so it's I can only imagine. But it's very interesting, and it's a true artist mentality to be like, yeah, I'll try that because it's a different experience that I haven't experienced.
Yeah, that's what I've always been like.
Take a risk.
Take a risk.
Get out of the comfort zone.
Yeah, get out of the comfort zone.
Yeah.
So I've always done that, And most of the time it turns out well for me. I get a great experience from it. But sometimes I've nearly lost my life from it. But, you know, it's still, even though that's happened to me a couple of times, surviving that has been an incredible experience too.
We're talking from the illness or other things?
No, like I got kidnapped when I was in Africa.
What?
Yeah. And I had to bargain with my body because I was very buff and this guy was obsessed with me. He was a fucking psychopath. And I was stupid getting into the situation, but I did. And he took me away in the middle of nowhere, you know, and I thought, I'm about to die. I had to bargain with my body to get out of there alive, and I had to beg and beg and beg and beg for hours because I thought, I'm dead. I'm in the middle of fucking nowhere, don't know where I am. He's got a knife. This is going to be the end, you know. But, you know, it was an incredible experience as well on the flip side of that. I mean, not everyone wants to have that experience. No. But when you're kind of brought up in a hyper-vigilant life, it's not as scary. It was frightening. I thought, I'm dead. I want to say my prayers now because I didn't know where I was. I was completely in a remote place in the pitch black of Zimbabwe, outside of Zimbabwe City, Harare. But it was an amazing experience too. That's what I mean about judging experience. You know, I could look back on that and say, that was a terrible experience. Well, it was on one level, but also I was like, wow, what an experience. And that's the same thing I said to myself when I was diagnosed with leukemia. This is going to be shit, but it's going to be an amazing experience.
Is that story in the book?
Which one? Yeah.
The African one?
It is actually. It is in the book.
Okay.
Yeah, it's called The Loneliest Man in the World. Right. This guy, you look into his eyes and there was nobody there. Nobody.
Psychopath. Sociopath.
So, yeah, completely off the Richter scale, you know. Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
What, is there any other sneak peeks of other stories that you could tell us that might be a chapter in there?
Oh, okay, probably if I remember them all, but there's a few interesting chapters in there, I think. Well, I've only had a couple of people read the chapters who think they're great stories, you know.
But they're your stories.
Well, they are, but they're all, I guess in general, even though I haven't really thought about this a huge amount, they're all developed from risk, from adversity, from difficulty, and from challenge, you know. Yeah.
As somebody who has come to terms with they're nearing the end of their existence on the planet, what would you say the meaning of life is if you had to think about that?
Okay, the meaning of life generally, I would say, is serving other people. I've been really into that for a long time, you know. It's so important to serve other people and not serve self. You know, I think that's a vital ingredient. Trying to limit the influence of the ego. That's mine. She's mine. He's mine. That I need that job, and I'll be happy if I get that job. All that stuff is bullshit. Mm-hmm. You know, from my opinion. But the meaning of life is there is no one meaning. You know, the meaning changes every day, really. But I have no doubt that I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. Mm-hmm. And some people will go, you're talking shit, you know. But that's okay. I don't care what they say because I know that I am, you know. From my out-of-body experiences, all that kind of stuff that I've had, I know that I am, you know. So I'll just cross over and being here and going through what I'm going through and going through it in the most loving way I can. Because I've been in hospital so much, I've seen people in hospital next to me in the next bed. The nurse will come in, they'll abuse the nurse because they're suffering, they're in pain, they're afraid.
That's their coping mechanism.
Yeah, I never, ever did that. Mm-hmm. Only because I thought, it's not the nurse's problem that I'm dying from cancer or that I'm afraid or that I'm really sick or that I'm in pain. It's not her problem. So why should I make it her problem? You know? So loving kindness at every option, I think, is vital for all humans, you know?
And I guess everybody's meaning and everyone's journey is different. There's no one meaning of life for everyone.
No, everyone. And if you haven't got a meaning in your life, just make one up. So say to people, you know? The meaning can be to get to the end of the day by doing 3 loving acts for someone else. That's a great meaning to have your life that day, you know? Instead of sitting around waiting for meaning to find you, because it won't. it won't find you.
Yep.
You've got to seek it or create it is more the word. Yeah.
And doing something different every day out of your regular, safe zone is something cool to just set your mind to.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Always expanding your boundaries and not being afraid to be afraid. Yeah.
Not be afraid to be afraid.
Yeah, because lots of people are. They avoid it. I want to take a risk. I'll be afraid. And I go, well, you're not going to allow yourself to be afraid. You're not allowing yourself to be vulnerable. You don't allow yourself to be vulnerable, you'll never transcend anything in your life. Because risk and adversity brings upon great things to you. I've learned that many times over. So I'm not just spouting it from a book. It's my reality.
Have you had any near-death experiences before? You've said you've had some out-of-body experiences. They can sort of be similar.
Well, I've had experiences for a while where I could see, I don't know if I said this before, I can see people that I know have died. And they'll start talking to me. I start talking back to them. It's happened for quite a while.
Is this when you're under the influence? Is this when you're meditating? When does
No,
this
this is just when I was out of hospital in the remember one time I was sitting with my sister in the garden at the Alfred Hospital, and I said to her, "Can you see a girl sitting on that bench over there? She's got like a yellow dress on. She's Asian. She's about 8 years old." And she goes, "No." I said, "But I know you can." I said, "I can. I can tell you exactly what she's doing right now." So for a while, it was like something opened up to me while I was seeing people that I knew had died, but they didn't know they were dead. And they were coming to me and saying things to me, like I said before, if you see my dog that ran past you, just mundane things. And I started talking back to them going, fuck, am I losing my mind? Because no one can see that person except for me. Or maybe they can, but I can see them. And that's when I started to have those experiences for a while.
Yeah. So you think the spirits remain in this world that we're in now, or the spirit world and the physical world we're in now coexist? Or
I think the spiritual mind slowly takes over the human mind. The human mind is the one that goes, if I only had a better job, I'd be happy. If I can find the right woman, I'd be happy. That's the human mind. That's a human mind problem, The spiritual mind, we live in a human mind, of course, all the time, but we can have moments when we're out of it. LSD, for example, will take you out of your human mind. You see and experience a different reality. So all those experiences open you up to the potential of what can be in anything and everything.
So are you at this point now not ready, but it's coming and you're at peace, but you still want to get the most out of this life while you can? Is that where you're at?
Yeah, when I can. But look, yesterday I was begging to die.
Wow.
No energy, completely sapped. It's the worst feeling. I've got severe fatigue anyway, but when your hemoglobin goes down to fucking nothing, you've got nothing. You can't even walk. You can't even stand up. You're dizzy. You feel so shit. I'm just going, please fucking take me. And I've done that many times over the last 10 years. Many times I've begged to be taken. Please just take me. I can't go through this. Because I've suffered a lot of pain with all these procedures, 3 bouts of double pneumonia, only died twice from that. It's just ongoing, So many times I've not wanted to be here anymore. But I won't take my own life. I don't believe that's the way to go.
Yep.
Because I've been put here to live out a life. I believe I possibly chose the life I've got before I came here, but I don't have a consciousness of that now or a memory of that. So therefore, my job is to live it out, not to judge it and to say, you know what, I've had enough now. Because if I do that, I won't learn all the lessons I'm supposed to learn by staying here, by re-engaging with the reality that I have.
Yep. Man, I'm stoked that you did make it here. And when you sent me a message yesterday saying that you probably wouldn't, it was upsetting. And then this morning when I woke up and you said you were good, it's awesome. And I appreciate you making the effort to come in.
Oh, I really wanted to come, mate. I really wanted to see you and come and see Ryan too, of course.
Yep.
But I didn't think yesterday. Yesterday I had no chance.
Yeah.
No chance. But this morning when I woke up, thanks to those transfusions, I thought, you know what? I'm going to go. Fuck it. Because I know that any day could be my last. Could have been my last day yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But thankfully you made it.
Thank you, mate. Thanks for having me on.
No worries. Do you know you've did a art installation at Neighbours Cafe?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Did you? I don't know. This is just a funny little thing, but that's actually where Ryan and I met at Neighbours Cafe.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Have you seen the installation there?
I haven't been back since. I don't get down to St Kilda too much, but yeah, that must be cool doing little community things like that.
Oh, look, that was a great project, and it's quite a full-on mural. It's all panels stuck to the wall. It's called Kaleidoscopia, St Kaleidoscopia, my homage to St Kilda. So the mayor came and opened it, and it was a great day. It was fantastic.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Anthony, I feel like I don't want to take too much of your time. Are you feeling all right?
Yeah, I'm weary, but I'm all right.
I feel like, you might be getting a bit tired. Do you want to have a little break? Are you ready to wrap it up?
It's up to you. Have you got enough, or do you want some more?
I think we've got plenty of stuff, and I reckon maybe we just have a chat and we can turn the cameras off. What do you think?
Sure.
I appreciate you coming in, man. Thank you.
Oh, no, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Cheers.
3,000.